The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. Welcome to the show. So thrilled to be here. We're going to be with you live for the next 2 hours talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective. For those of you who aren't sure if we're live, I want to remind you that today is Thursday. I believe it's the 25th of July, if I'm keeping track of things correctly. It is 10 o'clock in the morning here, Pacific time. This is the time in which we break into our 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week feed of the show because the show plays endlessly. We interrupt to bring the show to you live. This is a great opportunity for you to interact with us, to ask questions, to give support to other people, to suggest topics, to say, hey, I hate it when you do the jargon of the day, whatever it is that you want to say to us. We love to interact with you. Somebody wrote in yesterday and said, I don't have any questions, but I'm just loving what I'm seeing. And you know what? We love that too, because it lets us know that we're on track. We all love to get more information, right? We say with our kids on the autism spectrum that giving them opportunity and immediate feedback leads to better outcomes. So we're that way too. We like the feedback too. Good, bad, or indifferent. We love to hear from you guys. Emily's going to show you some of the different ways that you can interact with us here, some of the different ways that you can watch the show, and some of the different ways that you can talk to us. While she's doing that, I'm going to remind you there's only one way to watch us live right now. That's at www.autism-live.com. When you go there, as I said, the show plays 24 hours a day, 7 days a week there, but we do interrupt the feed for 2 hours a day, 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. to noon Pacific Time. I'll ask you to do the math wherever you live in the world to figure out what time that is for you. And at any time, though, that you go to autism-live.com, one of the ways that you can get in touch with us, there's a white box that's there. That's the interactive box. Put your cursor there. We try to have it open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week now. Sometimes it bumps off in the middle of the night. I apologize for that. Can't do anything about that. But put your cursor there, type whatever you want, hit enter, and then it will appear on my screen the next time I'm here in the studio, and we will get to your question. We have a backlog right now. I love that you guys interacted so much. We're going to try to get to as many of those questions as we can during the week. A lot of you were writing in during Ask Dr. Doreen yesterday, and we'll try to get to the ones that are Dr. Doreen specific in the coming next week. If possible, get as many of those in next week. But I also want to remind you, first of all, that when you interact with us, all the different ways that you interact with us are free. That's really important to us here. I imagine it's important to you. It's a great opportunity for you to ask the questions that you need and get more information. Of course, there is no child-specific information given here on the show because the amount of information that would need to be given an expert in order for them to give child-specific information just isn't possible in this format. But it really, I believe as an autism parent, and I know that you guys have written in and said this, it really helps to point you in different directions to start looking at more things or call somebody to say, hey, this is what we need next. That's really key for us. We want to be able to help give you the support and steer you in the right direction. I'm not an autism expert, but I'm an autism parent, and I always say that if somebody hadn't pointed me in the right direction at the right time, I don't know where we'd be. But I'm lucky because we did meet the right people at the right time. They steered us in the right direction. My son got early intervention of the best kind at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. So it feels like on this show that we have we feature a lot of different experts, and they are by no means all from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, but a lot of them, I call on the people that I know and that are experts because they're at the top of their field and they happen to be at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. So if it feels like I'm a big fan of them, make no mistake, that's the truth. They gave me back my child. My child, oh, gee, I just hit a pocket there of the emotion, right? Whew, that was unexpected. My child was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. He's 10 now. And when I think about we talked about this briefly yesterday. We had an expert on yesterday in the area of Fragile X. And I was saying to that expert and to Nancy that on that first day when the developmental pediatrician said, yeah, autism, she had a very thick German accent, so that's exactly what she said, yeah, autism. And she sent me across the hall to get the blood drawn for a Fragile X test. And that's how I know for sure that we got tested for that. But I was saying to Nancy, I remember it. And the only reason why I remember it, because she said, I'm not sure if we got tested, was that it was the very first thing. And that I remember going across the hallway feeling like my whole world had changed. Everybody else was moving at the same speed, but everything had changed for me. And I walked across the hall and sat there with my son and was hugging him and waiting for them to do the blood draw. And of course, getting at the time he was 2.5, a 2.5-year-old who has behavior problems anyway to do a blood draw. It's a cute trick. So that was horrifying. And while I was there, I think my face must have fallen into my lap because I was thinking, what is the rest of my life going to look like? And I can tell you now at 10, because we got that intervention, the rest of my life looks pretty flippin' sunny because my child doesn't have challenging behavior anymore, and he doesn't have self-injurious behavior, and he doesn't hit or bite or kick me or his friends anymore, and he has friends, by the way, and he has language, and he's able to go to school, and he's already, picked out his office at NASA. All the things that in that moment in time when I was sitting there that I just didn't know if any of those things were going to happen. And so I got access, and it's important to me that you get access. We know it's not equal and even. We know that all kids are different. We know that their outcomes are going to be different. But what we do know is there's progress available for everybody. And while the playing field is not level and all of you don't have access to the same amount of funding that we were able to get through the state of California for those therapies, all of you have access to something that has the potential to turn the dial and definitely has the potential to create big progress for you. So I want to hook you up to that. I really want to hook you up to that. That's what the whole point of this show is for me personally. So I hope you'll interact. I hope you'll tell us what you need. I hope you'll have a measure of patience with us as we try to answer all of your questions. So that's about it. Now I've gotten all misty and I have to reach for a tissue. I'm wrecking the studio and I've unplugged myself. Emily's going to shoot me. Emily is our fearless director here, our technical director, and who takes care of so many things, but I've unplugged her voice so she can't yell at me and say, what are you doing wreaking havoc in the studio? It's live. We keep it very real here. And now I have my tissues so I can mop down. All right. We like to start every morning with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. And this is the time of day when we really take this on. The jargon is intensive with autism, and it's important that we make friends with the jargon. It's going to help us to save money and save time. And these, are only secondary to keeping our kids safe, right? We have to keep our kids safe, we have to create progress, and we have to do it with the least amount of money and the most effectively time-wise that we possibly can. Aren't those the things when you get down to it? Isn't that what we're all about, all of us? And by the way, that it doesn't matter whether you're a parent, teacher, practitioner, that's what it is for all of us, or if you're an individual who is on the spectrum yourself. So we have to make friends with the jargon to some extent, and we can't allow ourselves to be overwhelmed by this. So we try to do it at a little schmidge, like they say in New York when you order the cream cheese, a schmear. We just do a schmear at a time. one phrase, one word, one acronym, and we try to make sense of it, give you an actual definition, and then a somewhat watered down version that maybe is a little bit more specific to our circumstances with autism. So today we're introducing a new jargon term we've never done before, and it's visual supports. Okay. And you think, okay, what exactly are we talking about? Our actual definition here: altering stimuli or creating stimuli to prompt an individual or give information utilizing visual strengths. Okay, but let's get a little bit more specific with it, a way of making auditory information visual. We always talk on the show about how when we're working on something and we want to teach a new behavior to someone, whether it's a child on the autism spectrum or ourselves, and it's a particularly difficult behavior or a difficult concept that we want to teach, we want to make sure that we're not trying to teach too much at the same time, right? Because that's when it gets all watered down and we don't get success and everybody gets frustrated. And rule number one is that it has to be reinforcing in order for us to have a way of getting it done, right? If it's not reinforcing, who's going to do it? Think about everything that you do on a daily basis. You only do the things that are reinforcing. There's got to be a paycheck at some level. Paychecks look like different things to different people, but there has to be some sort of a payoff or we won't keep doing it. We've all had that experience of that diet that you went on and you stayed on it for 45 days. Woohoo, right? That's great. But the 46th day, you go, because it wasn't reinforcing enough for you. Think about all the things in life that we do that way. Okay, so we have to have the paycheck there. And if we don't make it so that it's possible for us to see progress and get the paycheck, we're not going to want to do it. And we think about children, and especially kids who are on the autism spectrum, how much sensory stuff they have going on in any given moment. And I always think about the example of somebody said to me very early on when Jem was diagnosed, they said, okay, I'm going to try to teach you how to do logarithms, which for me would be just mind-boggling, right? Really, really difficult. But I'm going to teach you how to do logarithms because it's really important to you, Shannon. But I am going to put you in a room where there's strobe lights going at you constantly. I'm going to have people zapping you in the hand. I'm going to have somebody yelling something indistinctly behind you, right? And it's going to be cold and then hot in the room. Let's see how successful you are at learning logarithms. And it's really important that and I'm going to reward you when you learn something, right? But I'm going to give you all these other things to try to combat. It'd be hard. I bet I would cry. I might even throw a tantrum. I'm just keeping it real here, right? And sometimes it's like that for our kids on the autism spectrum. So we try to, teach one thing at a time. If I had to be in the room full of the strobe lights and it had to be hot and cold and I really had no control over it, we wouldn't start off trying to teach me the biggest concept with logarithms. We would really hone it down and you would play to my strengths, right? If you knew, Shannon's visual. So I'm not just going to sit here and talk to her about logarithms. I'm going to hold up pictures of logarithms. And I'm going to, illustrate it with a video for Shannon because I know she's visual. Then it's possible that I might be able to overcome some of the strobe lights and the heat and the cold and the person poking me. I got a chance of being able to learn this. And if you rewarded me a lot through it and you also at the same time were trying to stop one of those things like the strobing light, my chances of being successful would go up, right? So this is what we try to do. We try to play to a child's strengths. Now, all children are not visual, but a lot of our kids on the autism spectrum are visual and they're visual learners. So if we know that a child is very visual, then we're going to modify things and we're going to give them visual supports to help them to learn something. And by the way, we do this all the time for people of all abilities. We have street signs that are very visual. Whenever you see a traffic circle, they have the sign saying traffic circle coming and people understand traffic circles. But before you get to the traffic circle, they always give you the sign that says, here's the traffic circle. Here's what it's going to look like. Here, if you want to go to this street, if you want to go to this street, if you want to go, so that you have a visual representation. We have maps to help us do things. When you when you go into a room and the chairs are set up in a circle, we have an understanding. It gives us information about what's about to happen and that we're supposed to sit in the circle, right? So there are visual supports and there are visual modification always. I love to have Sue Cho on the show, and sometimes we show clips with her, and you can, on our YouTube page, you can go and search all of the things with Sue Cho, and she talks about, she's a brilliant person at teaching our kids preposition and teaching language and giving visual modifications to children that need it. And she talks about the fact that there are some kids who don't have a depth. They're visual learners, but their depth perception is off, and that we will modify things and give them visual support so that when we're not working on depth, eventually we're going to work on depth perception, right? But when we're working on other things, we want to make sure that we're doing it in a format that they can understand and learn it. Does that make sense? I hope so. So we're playing to a strength here. And if we know that we have a visual strength, or we know we have a visual problem, my son has a problem being able to focus on things and go back and forth. Well, that's something we work on separately, but we're trying to make things easier for him when he's doing a sport so that, you know, he can focus on something. Even with the United States women's softball team, they do a thing where they write numbers on the softballs and they pitch them to them, and the batter has to look for the number on the softball and call it out before they swing, and it strengthens their ability to look at and keep eye contact with the softball. It's a visual modification. It's a visual support that helps them have a higher batting average. So we do these kinds of things in all different kinds of ways, and it's something to think about when we're teaching our children. You know, we had that Teacher of the Year, Elizabeth Duget, on last week. Duget, I'm not sure which way to say her name. But she was fabulous, and she said that her overriding mantra in her head for the summer before and through the whole school year was, how do I set this child up for success? And one way we can do that is using visual supports and giving visual modifications. So I hope that you will think about that with the children and with yourself. How can you set yourself up for success? Do you need a visual modification? Do you need to have a visual time schedule? Do you need to have something that reminds you to take something to work? I need that a lot of times. I forgot something really important yesterday because I should have given myself some sort of visual support on the door. Don't forget. Yeah. I can make a sign, a Post-it, to remind myself to put up the sign. There we go. In any case, visual supports, visual modification, really useful tool, especially for our kids who visual is a strong sense, and for kids who have visual issues as well. Okay, moving on. We always have a question of the day. Today is no different. And interesting that this would be today's question. You know, I decide these questions months in advance. But here I got all emotional today, and here's our question. What has been your biggest emotional challenge? And this has changed for me personally over the years. And I said on yesterday, with Dr. Dorian Grampiche, you know, one of the hardest things for me, and it's still hard for me, I think it's now more with other people's children than with my child, is when a child is denied something that we all know that they should have because of bureaucracy and people who think that they're doing a good job. They're supposed to be there to help us. They think they're doing a good job, but they make it harder. They make it harder deliberately. And I honestly, it was one of the most demoralizing aspects of my child being diagnosed with autism. It was hard for me when he was diagnosed with autism, but then once I said, okay, well, we're just going to do everything that we can. And when I would come up against people who were deliberately making it hard for him, and I'll be honest with you, I pray for these people's souls. I don't know how they sleep at night. I was just talking with a mom the other day who the insurance company that she's going through has given many hoops of fire for her to jump through. And we all know, those of us who've done this, you just got to jump through them. You just got to get your mind around it and jump through them. But she's going through the emotional of that, of why would you make it extra difficult? And of course, you know, I mean, I hate to think this, but if it takes her 30 more days to jump through the hoops that they've given her, that's 30 days that they didn't have to pay a claim. And I fear that, in all likelihood, that's a lot of the reason why they do the things that they do. It's horrible. There are words for it. It involves steaming piles of poo, my technical term for things like that. But emotionally, that's devastating. We still have to continue on. We still have to, but that's been one of the hardest things for me, is that I don't know what to do with that, because that's a mother's tears, right? That anybody could do that to a child. That's just ugly. Ugly, ugly, ugly. And yet, we have to face that on a daily basis as autism parents, and we have to move through it and move on. I look at my family, we're a living testament to the fact that when you move on, there are great rewards. When you get your emotions in a place where you're not poo-pooing them, but you say, okay, that's real, but the bigger picture is I got to keep going on. You do, and big things happen. So in any case, I'd love to hear from you guys. We will have time a little bit later on in the program to hear what your biggest emotional challenges are. And I do think it's healthful and helpful to name them. There's somebody out there who has the same problem, who feels like it's just them. And you need to, every once in a while, cough these things up and put them on the table so that it's not just you riding with it and saying, yeah, this is hard. This is inappropriate. This is not fair. This is not right. It doesn't change that it exists. But I think when we hold hands and share it a little bit, and other people go, you're right, this isn't fair, it helps you. It helps the stomach lining stay intact. Okay, we also always have a topic of the week, which goes hand in hand with some of the things that we've just been talking about, because our topic this week is making it work. Regardless of the challenge, regardless of the obstacles, we have to make it work. Failure is not an option, and so we run up against obstacles. I love the book, Going on a Bear Hunt, and they talk about we're going on a bear hunt, and they come up against these obstacles. They've got the mud. We can't go over it. We can't go under it. We can't go around it. We've got to go through it. And I do think that sometimes in our lives, we reach an obstacle and we have to stand back for a second and evaluate and go, okay, can I go around this? And sometimes you can. And can I go over it? Can I just leap over it and pretend it's not there? And sometimes you can. And sometimes you just got to walk through it. And, I really think that the answer lies in getting the mindset of saying, whatever it is, we're going to find a way around it, making it work. And I point to, and I did this when I was in the place of going, how in the hey nani do you make it work? I looked for other families and said, are there other people who've made it work? And you'll find them. They're everywhere. They do make it work. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just say, okay, I can do this. I will do this. We'll find the way. And when you do, it is very rewarding. Some of the different things that we're going to be talking about today, we've got a school tip for you today. We've got the myth of the day, which we haven't had a chance to do in a long time. And then in the second hour, BCBA board certified behavior analyst Angela Persicke will be with us. And we call that Breaking It Down with Angela. She's going to be taking on some of the questions that you guys have sent in, and we'll also be taking live questions. So if you've got something you want answered, I'm going to have a BCBA here, a board certified behavior analyst. We really appreciate all of your interaction. By the way, lest I forget, want to remind you that we're doing a big push right now to get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. That's right. If you will subscribe to us on YouTube, and if you will encourage others to subscribe, many of you have been asking why can't I watch the live show, or why can't I watch the show at all on my iPad and my other tablets? Well, it's because the format that it's in, but we have a solution for you. If we can get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, and we're within millimeters of that, then we will be able to stream live to you simultaneously from our site and from YouTube. And then you can watch us on the tablets. So if you're somebody who has been asking, can we get it on the tablet? How can I get it on the tablet? Why can't I watch it on my iPad? Why can't I watch it on my Android tablet? This is the solution for that, but we need your help. It doesn't cost you anything, but we need you to go to our YouTube page. Emily's going to show that to you. Right there it is. Go to the YouTube page and hit the subscribe. You will have to log into your Google account or your YouTube account or whatever, but please subscribe. And then there is a way that you can share this on our Facebook page. In fact, we have a contest right now that if you will share our post about this on our Facebook page, we're all the people who share it, we're going to put you in a hat, and one lucky winner will win a bottle of One Hope wine. They sponsor autism and other causes and help to raise money for those causes, and so it's a lovely bottle of One Hope wine. You will also win a copy of Temple Grandin's new book, The Autistic Brain, and you will win a brand new edition of Cornered, a game by Endless Games that is one of the games of the year. It's a great game for kids on the autism spectrum, really fun. We played it at my house. Fabulous game from Endless Games called Cornered. It's very much a visual game and awesome for our kids on the spectrum. So one lucky winner will win all three of those things, but in order to be entered, you've got to share that particular post on Facebook about those three things, encouraging others. Really is going to take not only you, but you asking other people to please subscribe to our YouTube page so we can get this done. Appreciate you so much. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to have our school tip of the week. Stick with us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hi, welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Lisa Ackerman, Executive Director of TACA. We're gonna bake again.
All right.
It's my lovely assistant.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Lucero.
We've heard so many people go, I want a decent chocolate chip cookie for my kid to eat. We've got all our dry ingredients. So I've got the flour, I've got the flaxseed meal, baking soda, baking powder, our gum, or xanthan gum.
Great.
So we're gonna get started in the mixer here. So those are dry ingredients. I do have brown sugar. We did cut this down. And the one way to do that is my favorite, and that's maple syrup. I'm using egg for this recipe, but we could use more arrowroot and also the flaxseed meal. So I'll go ahead and throw my eggs in here, which I love doing. So, and then the last thing is a shortening and gluten-free casein-free butter replacement. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this in. I've let it sit out for a while so it's nice and soft. So let's go ahead and mix this thing well. These are dairy-free, soy-free, and I really like them. Again, Enjoy Life is a great product. It's also net-free. And chocolate chips are a personal thing. I won't judge you if you use the whole bag.
I would.
I know, right? So here we go. Great recipe. It's the nice consistency. Everything's ready to go, so we can enjoy our cookies here in just about 10 minutes. We want to give it a kind of like a couple inches between each cookie. You know, a lot of people are really concerned about aluminum, so what I've done is I laid down my natural brown parchment paper, and Jen's helping out putting the cookies down. So we're separating the nice baked good that's all organic from the aluminum cookie sheets. So let's go put these in. So magic oven allows me to pull the last ones out. And voila.
Yum, that's so good.
Really great cookies. I'll let you have a bite so you can do my Vanna White there too. Yeah, these taste pretty good.
Really good.
We're going to come back later after I gain 5 pounds and eat this entire tray.
For sure.
You know, more feedback is good. So if there's something you want us to convert, like another recipe or maybe a relative made, just let us know, autismlive@gmail.com. You can go to Facebook, or there's thousands of recipes on the TACA website just waiting for you to explore. You can go to TACANOW, TACANOW.org, and we'll see you next time at Autism Live.
Bye.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Welcome back to Autism Live. It's time for our school tip of the week, and we've been talking a lot this summer about ways that we can set our children up for success, ways that we make it work. And we know that we talk about the jargon term antecedent, doing something beforehand to set kids up for success. And so I want to continue to talk about that, about ways that we can be taking this week and getting our kids ready for this coming school year. I know that there are academic concerns, and we've talked a little bit about making sure that our children get to bed at a certain time and that we're very slowly moving that dial. I'm not doing so good at this. I don't know how you guys are doing, but I need to really make this a priority. We've got a wedding coming up next week, though, and I know it's going to throw me off. So I think that's part of the reason why I'm having a hard time getting him. I'm, big proponent of just move it 5 minutes, but I know the wedding's going to blow it. So in any case, but I also want to talk a little bit today about this is the ideal time to be having play dates. This time in the summer, because the kids are starting to get bored. Everybody's a little bit like on edge. It's been really, really hot most of the places around the world. And now is the ideal time to sort of check in. If you have the ability to have met with a teacher already that your child is going to be in their classroom, great. If you haven't, this is a great week to touch base, right? And one of the questions you can put on your list is, do we have any idea yet whether here are some kids that we'd really love ideally to be in his class, and they might not be able to tell you, but you can say, I'm trying to set up play dates for him to, reconvene with these kids. Can I get sort of an idea? Sometimes you can say to a teacher, I'm thinking of play dates between these 3 people. You want to steer me in a direction of who might be ideal? And that might be a way they can say, oh, I know that so-and-so does lovely play dates, and they're not actually telling you that they're going to be in the classroom because they might not be able to, but they can at least leave hints, right? I know there are kids that our kids want to play with, and they're not always the best, most ideal kids for them to play with. I'm breaking my son's heart a little bit because there's one boy that he particularly likes to play with, and I'm sort of having to focus our time and our energies. That child's not going to be going to his school next year, and I want him to be able to play with him. I'm not saying don't do play dates with him, but I'm trying to focus more on play dates with the kids who are going to be on the playground with him and kids who are going to be in the classroom with him, because I got to have him be ready. We've also started, I know a lot of you wrote in yesterday about social stories. And social stories is a term that is pretty much attached to one individual who creates a specific thing. I want to talk to you more about social rules and getting our kids, using our language in a way that gets our child prepared, which goes hand in hand with the idea of social stories. So we've started also talking with our son about some of the things that are going to happen this year, because things are going to be vastly different for him in his classroom. He's going to a class that is split. He's in 5th grade, but it's going to be a 5-6 split. So half of the class will be doing 6th grade work, and he'll be in the class doing 5th grade work. But when it's appropriate, it's going to be a level of attention for him, though, and I need to start to get him in a mindset where something else can be going on in the room while he's focusing on something else. Can I tell you that part of the way that we're doing this is that if I'm making sure that, for instance, while he's playing a video game, which is very reinforcing for him and he can really focus, I make sure that I'm doing something else in the room and I'm not trying to be quiet. Like it may be me talking on the phone, or I've been working on a sewing project, sewing in the same room, so there's that noise. So I'm building up his tolerance of other things happening in the room while he's doing something preferred. And then we're also starting to transition into things that are a little bit harder for him and having other things going on, so that he's building up a tolerance for that. And talking to him a little bit about, the teacher isn't going to be available all the time, and there will be no aid in the classroom. So he's really got to self-manage and look to the other kids to see what they're doing, that if he doesn't hear the first prompt about the book, about, open your books to page 37, what are some things that he can do to help himself? And we do that. Last night there's a area pool, a neighborhood pool. We don't personally have a pool, but there's, for our homeowners association thing where we rent, there is a pool. And we were in the pool last night, and so we were having fun and doing laps and things, but I was bringing up, so what would we do if this were happening in the classroom? And he was fine. If I'd been doing it during something else, he would have said, Mom, why are we talking about this, right? And I kept it short and sweet, but we talked about some of the things that were going to happen, and I was building him up and saying, you're such a big boy now, and you're smart enough that you can be with the 6th graders, and it's going to be so cool, and, think about these kinds of people are going to be in your classroom. And so very, very important that we front load our kids with whatever is going to lead them to success. And the friend thing is a big part of it. So I started on play dates. See if you can work out a play date with some of the kids that your child will be interacting with. It's an ideal time to do it when there's not as much going on and the kids are a little bored right now. So see if you can't make that work. It's hard. I know it's hard. I'm struggling with it too, but it's really, really beneficial. That is our school tip for the week. Stick with us. We're going to be back with more information after these messages.
Hi guys, welcome back. For the month of July, I figured we're going to do something again that's more for outdoorsiness since it's summertime and I know your kids are going to be home and you need some activities to do inside and outside. So for July, I figured we'd make a lantern. So let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are wax paper, an iron, crayons, scissors, popsicle sticks, pencil sharpener, a glue gun, and tape. What I did first is that I have my iron heating on medium heat, okay? Make sure you keep this far away from your child because I won't want them to get hurt. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to take my wax paper and I'm going to make 4 sheets. I'm going to cut out a thing that's about 12 inches long, okay? Now that I have my wax papers cut out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my crayon, and if you have kids around, which I hope you do, I'm going to grab them and have them make some crayon shavings. What the shavings are going to end up doing is making it a design. And again, this is another time for you and your child to talk about colors. You can discuss like what would happen if you mix, some blue crayons and some yellow crayons. What would that produce? When you and your child have finally decided there's enough crayon shavings on your wax paper, what you're going to do next is you're going to take it and fold it in half. Now that I have it folded in half, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an old newspaper and then I'm going to sandwich it in between. And then with my iron on medium heat, I'm just going to have it gently on there just so the wax melts into the paper and becomes one thing. Let's take a peek inside. And as you can see, all the crayons have melted into it, making this beautiful kind of like rainbow-ish color. Alright, now I'm going to do this with the other 3 that I've made, and then we're going to assemble our beautiful lantern. Alright? So here are my 4 finished panels that I'm ready to build into the lantern. So what I'm going to do is I have these popsicle sticks, and I'm going to build them into a square and glue them together with my hot glue gun. While you're building your lantern, it's a good opportunity to work on math skills with your child. You could discuss how many sides does a square have versus how many sides does a cube have. Okay, I'm going to do this another 3 more times, so I have one for every single side. Alright, well, now that I have these 4 different sides built, I am now going to take these wax paper things that I've built, and then I'm going to put glue on here and smash it on there, okay? I know the wax paper is way too big for it, but what we're going to do later is trim it. Alright, so now they're all done being glued together. Now I'm going to take my scissors and trim along the outside. Now that the 4 sides are done, I'm going to take some tape and I'm going to line the edge of it so they will stay together to make my cube form. And voila, here's my lantern, but it's missing something. You're right, it's missing a light to illuminate it. So what I'm going to put in here is an LED light. I'm definitely not going to put a real candle or else this thing's going to catch on fire, and that is a real safety hazard, okay? So here's my little guy, and I'm going to turn it on and let's see what happens. Ooh, look at that. Isn't that pretty nice? And it's not even dark yet. I would love if you shared your pictures of your finished crafts. But until then, craft on. Bye, guys.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. It's time for our myth of the day. And we haven't done a myth in a while, and there's one that we've visited a couple of times about expectations of what an ABA program looks like. And this constantly changes. So I wanted to take just a couple of minutes and talk about this myth that in order to get an ABA program and in order to get funding for an ABA program, that it means that one or both parents has to be at home and can't go to work, and that it's going to be this financial devastation. Now, here's the thing with myths. There is an element of truth that was at one time often involved in it, so it makes it harder to combat the myth. Because certainly in the state of California, which is where I live and where my son got his treatment, in order to have gotten the funding source to pay for his ABA therapy, that was the case for us, that one of us had to stop working outside the home and be at home at all times during the therapy. And in our two-income society, that can be financially devastating to most people. I know people say, my goodness, you got your therapy paid for, you're so lucky. Yes. But I would tell you that there were a lot of people in the state of California that didn't do it because they felt they couldn't, because they would lose their homes if both people didn't work. And now we've shared the fact that center-based systems are becoming more common and are springing up in more places. So what this means is that the child, even before they're of school age, if it's a center-based system and that it's shown that that's, because it's not, different things for different kids. There are some kids who are going to need a home-based system, but a lot of kids would benefit from a center-based system. I would tell you honestly, I love that we had home-based intervention, but my child would have benefited from center-based system, and my family would have benefited from center-based system, because then the child goes to the location where there are BCBAs on staff, the therapists are there, the rooms are there and are set up with all the things that are necessary to be able to do the therapy, and things that, functional things like, be able to eat, and kitchens and things like that. But the kids are able to interact with other children. So the social program boosts, I think, just from having that. You don't have to, for those of us doing the home-based program, you really have to work to get enough play dates to make your social program run as smoothly as you would like to. It's like having another part-time job. But with the center-based system, the kids are right there, which is really kind of an amazing thing. And the fact that a BCBA is present, so if a behavior comes up, BCBA can come in and watch it in real time right there. Kind of amazing. And some of the center-based systems, too, it morphs up through when the child is going to school. So there is a classroom there, and there are kids there in the classroom. The therapist or the aide is there, the teacher is there, the BCBA is there, and, so much can get done in that amount of time. But also the parents are dropping off so that they get to continue to go to work. More and more of these center-based systems are popping up. There are more and more of them happening at card locations and at other ABA providers. If you are interested in knowing which card locations are having center-based systems, you can certainly go to centerforautism.com, go to the locations tab, and then go to the one that's closest to you, see if they've already gone to a center-based system or if they're going to. And you can also ask ABA providers in your area, are you doing center-based or are you just doing home-based? I think you want to make really sure that the ABA provider that you're utilizing has a center-based system that fits your individual child's needs, and make sure, we know that all ABA providers are not created equally. You want to make sure that they're still getting that 101, and that it's not like a daycare where there's one BCBA hanging out there. You want to have, I don't mean to laugh, but I'm sure that there's somebody out there who's had that idea. That's not what we're talking about here. But we're talking about really quality, targeted ABA therapy from people at the top of their game in a very concentrated way that allows the children to be safe and for parents to continue to work. The idea that a family had to end up in bankruptcy in order to get this therapy has changed exponentially. It's not everywhere, so you need to look and see, but don't automatically assume. For those of you in the Louisiana area, 2 months ago we would have said, yeah, there's nothing like that for you, and yet we were able to report to you earlier this week, and we had Kat Minch on talking about the fact that in August, this is going to be a reality in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and it wasn't there 2 months ago. So know that things are changing. Sometimes they're changing rapidly, sometimes they're changing slowly, but this is an option for families in a lot of places and more growing. I think it's definitely worthwhile looking into. There's a myth that someday we can just put paid to it and say that it goes over there, and there's no element of reality to it anymore. I look forward to that. So check it out, center-based system. It might be exactly what's right for your child and your family. Stick with us. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back and look at your answers to the question of the day.
The Institute for Behavioral Training provides courses in applied behavior analysis for the treatment of autism. Access IBT e-learning videos on the move and learn at your own pace.
I'm going to talk a little bit about intensity.
IBT e-learning makes any location your classroom on the go.
So our objectives for today are to really learn what is autism and how is it diagnosed.
Get professional guidance with IBT face-to-face training. IBT face-to-face training courses prepare you to effectively implement ABA-based interventions. Choose between small group and one-to-one instruction. Earn BCBA supervision hours via one-to-one video conferencing.
So I had a chance to review your BIP today. You know what? It looked really good. You did a good job with it.
IBT, continuing education courses. Earn credit through webinars, conferences, article reviews, and e-learning videos. You can learn more at ibehavioraltraining.com. IBT, 360 degrees of ABA training.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I totally got so excited because I was watching that IBT ad, and I just love it that I forgot what I was doing. Just being honest here. In any case, we were going to go to the Facebook to look at your answers to the question of the day. And I'm bringing that up on my phone. And our question today was, what's been the hardest part emotionally for you? I talked a little bit about the fact that for me it was realizing that people who are supposed to be helping our kids sometimes and are in positions of power, they're supposed to be doing something for our children, are often tasked with making it harder for us to get what our child needs, and that still takes my breath away. I will say that doesn't happen on a regular basis with my child at this point, and of course I need to knock on some wood somewhere, but I live vicariously through the things that you guys write in, and it frustrates me as if I'm back on day one with it happening to my child. So some of the things that you guys have written in, one mom wrote in and said, watching my son melt down with extreme anxiety, stepping back and seeing him go to his sensory box to try to calm down just kills me sometimes, but so proud of him for knowing what to do, even if it doesn't always help. It is devastating when our kids are having extreme anxiety. I don't know if you were able to watch yesterday with Dr. Doreen Graham-Bechet. She mentioned that she has done a conference talk on just anxiety, and we're seeing about making that available for everybody. Anxiety with individuals on the autism spectrum and what we can do to combat it. It's over an hour long, full of information, and I know so many of us deal with anxiety and deal with our children having anxiety, and so we're figuring out how we're going to do that, and I'll update you guys on that as we get more information on that. Someone else who says letting go of the ideals. Yeah. Yes, I remember one of the first time that I ever spoke to Bryce Myler. Now, Bryce is the person that I always tell you when you're calling the Center for Autism and Related Disorders and you're calling because you want to know if your insurance coverage is going to cover it, and you need someone to negotiate with your insurance provider. Bryce is the head of the contracts department here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And Bryce is amazing. She's an insurance expert, but she's also the mom of a son who recovered from autism many years ago. And if you wanted somebody in your corner, man, it would be Bryce. And I remember the first time that I ever spoke to Bryce about what it was like for her And by the way, she is featured, and her son's story is featured in the video Recovered, which follows 4 children who received therapy and eventually were deemed recovered at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And her son, Brett, is one of those kids. And so I got a chance to talk to Bryce, and she said, you know, it's that moment when you realize everybody else is going to be going to Little League and to ballet classes, and you're not going to go. That's just not going to be what your life is about. And realizing, you know, it's not going to be about, inviting other kids over and baking cupcakes and decorating cookies and all that sort of those ideal things that you had about being a parent and what that was going to be like, and that you got to let go of all those. I will tell you, and Bryce will tell you also, that once you let go of those and you get into the work, a lot of them come back. A lot of them come back to a lot of people. So let go of them. I'm encouraging you, let go of it. Meet your child where they are. Work on the things that you have to work on, but you'll be amazed at the things that come back. Another person who says, hearing him talk with his friends about college, driving, and having a girlfriend. Yeah. And I'm unclear whether it's letting go of him, because I know for some people it means letting go of the idea that he's going to do all these things, or whether in this case it's the mom saying, you know, he talks about these things and I'm not sure whether they're going to happen. Either way, it's emotional. In just a few minutes, we're going to go to the A word, and the dad talks a lot about how, you know, I need to know, is he going to be able to play on the high school football team? I need to know, is he going to be able to date? Is he, you know, is he going to go to the prom? Is that going to happen for my kid? These are all questions that we all have, and the emotional question mark that comes with them is just devastating. But again, if you let go of it and say, all right, I don't know, but we're going to do everything that we can, for a lot of us, it has come back to, I know for sure that my son's going to go to college. I know for sure that my son is going to date. He has people wanting to date him now at the age of 10. It's not allowed. I know for sure that my son he's got friends now. And, you know, so I know that those things are going to happen. You know, about the driving thing, I'm pretty sure. Jury's still a little out, because he thinks he's going to drive, and I hope he's going to drive. I'm a little scared, but we'll see. He has to get the bike riding to a point where it's really safe and I can let him do it by himself before we even entertain the driving the car thing. But many of our kids drive. Many of our kids drive. Another person who says, trying to explain to my 12-year-old son his daddy has cancer. He says he's stressed but can't tell me his emotions. It's tough. He said, Mom, it's like telling a 5-year-old to fly a jet. They just can't. And I can't explain how I feel. It just makes me want to cry. I'm so proud of him, yet he feels so unloved and forever trying to run away. Well, you know, and we talk about how it's different for all of us and we have different things going on, and bless your heart that you've got a 12-year-old on the spectrum, and that's enough, right? And in my book, that should exempt you from anything else, but that your husband also is battling cancer, and trying to explain that to a typical 12-year-old would be tough, but trying to explain that to a 12-year-old who's dealing with a lot of other things. And we talked yesterday about those hormone years, when the hormones come on and the anxiety comes with them, a really, really difficult time. I would encourage you, don't try to do this alone. You know, there are some great sibling groups that are springing up, and maybe a sibling of another child, a sibling of a person who has a sibling on the autism spectrum would be an ideal playmate for your child right now, to help them have a way in which they can talk about these things with somebody who's going to be a little extra patient. You know, there maybe in your local support group, you could put that feeler out and say, hey, I need a buddy for my 12-year-old. Is there anybody out there who's got a neurotypical kid or a really high-functioning kid who could help my child transition through this time? but having somebody for them to talk to. We know that when tough things happen with our kids, and even our kids who are really good at talking about their emotions, they need somebody other than mom to talk about something that's affecting them and mom. So I would certainly encourage you to get some help, because you can't take this all on yourself. And he needs somebody that he can say things to that they have no emotional ties to it. So he can say, I'm mad at my mom. Why couldn't she stop the cancer? Because he may be feeling something like that, which wouldn't be productive him saying to you, and he would feel bad saying it to you, and it would be not good for you. But somebody safe that he can say that with, and then they can say to them, how could your mother have? That's just not something your mother could have, whatever it is. I encourage you to get some help and support there, but bless your heart and let us know if there's something we can do. Absolutely. Another person who says the meltdowns can be pretty difficult. Yeah, I love when our experts talk about the meltdowns, and I love it when we have an opportunity, especially with Evelyn Gould, to talk about the emotional aspect of the meltdown for us. Because your child melts down and it's miserable for anybody, right? But there is an emotional component for the autism parent. The guilt thing, we talked about guilt last week, the guilt that we carry with us, and the feeling that somehow we should know or do something so that there would never be a meltdown. Really difficult. Another person who says, back and forth with my mom that I still need my meds so that I can be at my optimal functioning range for my job as an OT. I hear from more and more adults on the spectrum about battling with their parents about what they can do and what they can't do. That's a very emotional challenge. I can't even imagine. My son already has started saying to me, Mom, you need to let me do what I need to do. It's really hard for me and it's really hard for him. Somebody else, watching the last moments of my grandfather and not being able to do anything to prevent it. Yeah. So devastating. Death is hard for any of us to understand, but being on the spectrum and that feeling of helplessness and not understanding. My son talks to me more and more about how he feels about my mom dying, his grandmother, back in December, and he's got some anger about it. I do too, but really difficult for me to tell him how to challenge it, how to channel it, right? Another person who says, hiding mine. It's hard to pretend you're okay when you're not, so your son won't feel sad. I have become the master of facial expressions, hiding things. Yeah, it's a tough line. There are things that we need to hide from our kids to protect them because they don't need to know everything that they can't possibly handle. There's a certain amount of stuff that we need to show them, though, too, and it's a very fine line that each of us needs to decide for ourselves. I felt very much that I wanted to make sure that my son saw me grieve so that he would know it's okay and you survive it. But it's a very fine line, and I've stepped over it a couple of times where he gets afraid. He's like, oh no, you're going to start crying again. Fine line. All of our kids are different. But finding that line of letting them see what's really going on and sheltering them, really, really tough. And of course, we've got more. You can check those out on our Facebook page. And of course, continue to add. I do think it helps you to add, and it helps other people when they see what you're going through. They know they're not alone, and it helps them to be able to reach out to you. Sometimes there are days when I don't know it's going to be okay for me, but it's easier for me to tell you that it's going to be okay for you because I know that. Does that make sense? It does to me in my warped head. In any case, we digress. It's time for us to go to the A Word. This is the wonderful ongoing documentary being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, following a little boy, Jack Riley, diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. He's in his third year at this point of life. He's had a full year of autism intervention, ABA intervention, and he is starting school. It's a new kettle of emotional challenges for mom and dad. Take a look. This is the A Word.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack. Jack Riley. He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast.
So Jack Riley is starting preschool, and we're scared. because it's a big classroom. He'll have a full-time aide for at least the first month, and then we'll see what happens after that.
Is he in a classroom with typical peers or mixed classroom?
It's a mixed classroom. To be honest with you, I don't think they love him yet. You guys always treat him with love.
How many teachers are there in the classroom with them?
There's 2 and a couple assistants, and one who's supposed to be Jack's assistant, but we think she's just reassigned at the last minute to pretend she's Jack's assistant. We're going to, in fact, try to observe a little today.
After Jack Riley has been in school for 30 days, Cheryl and Mike have an IEP meeting with the school district. An IEP is an individualized education plan. It's a legal binding document that outlines plans and goals for a child.
We went to our IEP the other day, and it did not go as badly as we thought it would. What they're ultimately trying to do is to take away a lot of the structured speech and OT time. They guised it under the fact that most of his needs are social related. What they're trying to do is do a lot of what they call push-ins, which is doing his speech therapy in the classroom. The more I think about it, the more I think that that's what should be happening in the classroom at all other times. Part of our concern is that we won 2 hours of OT during the due process, and they've never given it to us. For us now to allow them to reduce it to 90 minutes with never having even gotten the 2 hours.
Did the IEP affect the ABA he was getting?
No, the ABA right now is being provided by our regional center because I have a self-funded insurance plan that denied ABA coverage. So it is being provided by the regional center, but that's contingent upon us getting a certain amount of services from the school district. So it's all so interconnected and so scary because if one slips, then the other one does too.
Welcome back. Talking to Emily. Really love this series and encourage you to watch the A Word in all its entirety. You can pick up the series at any point that you like on their very own personal YouTube page. If you want to start from the beginning and see what Jack Riley was like before he started early intervention of ABA, if you want to check in and see where he is now, because we are not up to date, you can go through the entire potty training series and see what's happening closer to reality, because Jack Riley has aged quite a bit even since this video. Just want to say, we asked today about what's your biggest emotional challenge, and here Mom just cycled through a whole bunch of them about, is the school going to do what's best for him? Is the IEP what's right for him? Are they going to offer us, is the insurance company going to ever fund us in the way that we should? Is the regional center going to cover this? Is our funding source going to be, are we having enough time to spend with the baby? Because now there's a second child. Are we going to be able to work this out schedule-wise? Right? It's a lot, but they're making it work. Our theme for the week, making it work. And this idea of taking it day by day and seeing how things unfold and saying, well, I guess we'll just have to see. Also very important. I've shared recently in the last couple of weeks that the governor here in the state of California has been at the forefront of autism treatment for a really long time. And I personally benefited from that because my child got really important therapy that was paid for by the state of California. So I love this state. This is not my home state or my original state, but it is my home state now. And I speak very highly of the state of California, and I speak very highly of our regional center system that is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it has helped a lot of kids, including my child, and given us access to great ABA providers like CARD. Unfortunately, our governor right now is missing some information, and I appreciate that he wants to be fiscally responsible and that he has said time and time again, I'm not going to do something that's not fiscally responsible. But unfortunately, I think he's missing the boat a little bit where it comes to autism, because there have been a couple of decisions that he has made that I think are ignorant or ill-informed. And it is part of my job on this planet to make sure that people are informed and make informed decisions. I'm not going to pretend to know what's best for everyone, but I think you should make informed decisions. And right now I'm talking to you, Governor Jerry Brown. Make an informed decision, please. When we talk about autism treatment, and there was the possibility that you could have provided provided ABA for thousands of children in the state of California and had it paid for by the federal government with this new Affordable Health Care Act, and you chose not to. And your rationale was, I don't want to provide something right now on the federal dollar that we won't be able to afford in 10 years' time at the state level. Well, I understand what that rationale is. You missed the boat. The boat is that those children could have gotten all the way through their program and been done and been productive members of society. You decided to be fiscally responsible by not giving thousands of children a treatment that would have helped them and that they would have skill-wise been done with in 2 to 4 years. And there would have been 10 years of that paid for by the federal government from a fund that they had set aside to do exactly that. So I don't know what you're thinking, but probably the same thing that you're thinking when you're saying that regional centers should not have to pay a deductible, because you've decided that the insurance companies are paying enough. I would tell you that that is an ill-informed decision because those families cannot afford that therapy. The insurance company might be on the hook for $100,000, but the family might be on the hook for $10,000. And by not giving them the help and the support, spending $5,000 or $10,000 a year on a child, where it used to be that you would have paid $100,000 to save millions of dollars down the road. Excuse me, what's the more fiscally responsible thing to do? I'm sorry, I just felt the need to go off and say, if you have the opportunity, if somebody knows how to get these messages to Governor Brown, I encourage you to have your words heard to Governor Brown. This is unconscionable. You know, we want you to be fiscally responsible, but spending $5 now to save $5,000 down the road is a good idea, and the numbers just put zeros after them because that's the difference. Let's spend $5,000 a year to save $5 million down the road, Governor Brown. All right. I've said my piece for today. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to bring BCBA, board-certified behavior analyst Angela Persicke in, and I'm going to lower my blood pressure. Stick with us. Currently, in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism, my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Did you have some gases?
Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
I have 2 children with autism. I can't imagine a day without CARD or the therapists. They've been so instrumental in helping us with our kids and shaping their lives and helping us help them.
Thank you, Christina Big Alex.
Thank you, Jackie and Mariana.
We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable, and recovery from autism is possible.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our very special guest in the studio right now, BCBA Board Certified Behavior Analyst Angela Persicke. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
We haven't had you in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
We've been out, you've been out, we've been doing things. Yep. But in any case, so thrilled to have you here. And it used to be that you worked in the same building where we're at. Yes. You don't anymore.
We do not.
You have moved to nether parts, and the office where you have moved to is having a big open house next week. Tell us a little bit about that.
We are. We moved to the Thousand Oaks area, and it is going to be CARD is making it into a center-based program.
Which we were talking about earlier, center-based programs.
And which I absolutely love. Center-based programs have a lot of really great benefits, especially giving parents some time.
Yes.
For themselves to be able to go do some things, like even go shopping on their own, and
or work.
Work,
because that's
yes, exactly.
A reality sometimes.
Among many other things.
Yes.
But also, this CARD office and center-based program is unique because it's a partnership with Autism Research Group.
Awesome.
So, Autism Research Group is a new nonprofit that was founded by Dr. Doreen Graham-Piché, Dr. Dennis Dixon, and Dr. Jonathan Tarbox.
Awesome.
And it is pretty much the research department that was here at CARD, and now we are a nonprofit working as our own entity to help families with what they need now using scientific principles and looking at what is most effective and most helpful for families who are dealing with these issues right now.
Love it.
So we are partnering with the Thousand Oaks office, and we are going to we have the opportunity there to look at the most effective treatments and implement those, and as well as different assessment tools and procedures and trainings. And so our goal is to find what's effective and implement it starting at a small level, like at maybe one office, and then moving into a bigger level. So
absolutely. I love the fact that research is constantly being done because we're always wanting what's efficient and effective at creating progress for our kids. And I love the fact that you guys don't just say, okay, well, we're done. We know that ABA creates progress, and we have this curriculum, and we've tried this on thousands of kids. We're done. You keep looking for newer, more efficient ways of making sure that a lesson, instead of taking 13 steps, to get it down to 7 steps. To be able to teach it to a child in a way that they get it, after doing 8 trials instead of 13 trials. So I really appreciate that, because we're always talking about saving time and money and helping our kids. So.
Exactly. It's really exciting. So the open house will be next Wednesday from 5 to 7:30 in Thousand Oaks at 325 East Hillcrest Drive.
Okay, so 5 to 7:30.
Yes,
that's when it is. Okay, I'm going to make an effort to see if I can get there for that.
There will be a couple special guests speaking. So, and Dr. Graham-Piché will be there as well. And we have some fun and games set up, and a few really, really cool things to orient everyone to the center, including everyone in the Thousand Oaks area.
And people can bring their children.
Yes, we have childcare available.
And there are therapists, not just Joe babysitter. Therapists, trained therapists will be there to be babysitting the children, so you have a measure of comfort, know that your kids are having a good time.
Exactly.
So I think if if nothing else, it's a great time to come with your significant other and pretend to be adults and have adult conversations and be able to ask some questions of some really heavy hitter experts that are going to be there.
Exactly.
And you'll be there.
I will be there.
It's like the cast of our show will be there.
Yes,
Dr. Graham Pichet will be there. I would imagine that Dr. Tarbox will be there. Dr. Nadowski. I don't know if Evelyn Gould will be there, but a lot of people who we feature on the show, amazing experts. And Dr. Dixon, who I imagine is going to be there, and he's really hard to get on our show.
Oh, I bet.
But he will be there live, and that's an opportunity for people to be able to talk to him, a great mind in the field of autism and analyzing data. Really amazing.
They do ask you to RSVP if you do plan to go. So you can email Daphne Plump at D.Plump, Plump, at centerforautism.com.
Okay. And if you go to the centerforautism.com homepage, they have rotating things that tell you information about different places. And I know that there's one that you can click on to RSVP for that, as well as the conference, the free conference that we've been talking about on Tuesday that's happening in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So always tons of information on that site to let you know things that are coming up in, different areas around. But I'm really excited about this new facility and the things that are going to happen there, that it's a center-based system, so families can drop off a child, and that you're going to be able to do research in pretty much real-time, amazing institute, and that I think it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. And I know from, being a parent who had a child being treated at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, that before our child participated in any research, we got full disclosure and we got to agree to it or decline.
Yes.
And I would imagine that that's going to be the case with anything that happens research-wise at the center-based system.
Yes, we have a few different methods for evaluating research, and one of them is this pure research where it might not have any benefit for the child. So we're looking at something that is maybe new, maybe even a new technology that we're not sure if it works yet, and so we're evaluating that. That type of research is very much on the end of the research spectrum, where we will get full permission from all parties involved. It has to be passed by a review board who says gives us permission to do the study and validates that the methods are appropriate. But then there's what we call treatment evaluation, and this is more on the lines of what clinicians are doing all the time already, and we collect data on these methods and to show that actually what is being done isn't just something that someone pulled out a hat and has been doing for a long time, and so that's why it's okay. It's actually proven to be effective. And that end of the spectrum is what we do at CARD all the time, actually. We collect continuous data and we show that something is working or not. So that end of the spectrum is something that's just already built into CARD. It's what we do all the time. But of course, everything we do, the parents will have full disclosure of what is going on. Just like they do now with the clinicians. They know exactly what the child is doing and what programs they're working on.
Yes, absolutely. And that was the first time that I got to meet Dr. Tarbox was when we started at CARD, and he sat down with us and went through the paperwork with us at that time and said, here are some, things, some options, and we could ask all the questions that we wanted to, and we could opt in and opt out of different things. It was just really very informative, and we were very I want to say taken care of is the way I felt, that that every step along the way, if something was going to be worked on, we were notified and given options. So just want to let people know that in case you think that your child is just an experiment. That's by no means the situation.
Not at all.
Okay, so we're going to take a little bit of a break, and then we're going to come back and answer some of the questions that you guys were writing in yesterday and today. We're going to talk a little bit about social stories, and we're also going to talk about perseverating on and intentions of things, because somebody wrote in a question about that. So stick with us. More to come with Angela Persicke after these messages.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tacs, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live. In the studio with us right now is board-certified behavior analyst Angela Persicke. Thank you for being here with us. You have the opportunity right now to be asking questions on the live feature, and we're going to take some of the questions that we've had in the last 24 hours. Someone wrote in and said, "Good morning. Today, could you talk about social stories, please? They're studying to be a therapist. They said my hopefully future employee wants me to learn about how social stories work, and do you think I can get anything about it?" We also had another question that came in about social stories as well, saying how can I use a social story to help my child? So very open-ended. So I talked a little bit about social stories before, but I'd love to hear it from a BCBA point of view. So fill us in.
Well, I mean, we come across this all the time where social stories are used in almost every child's programming. The research behind them is a little bit, it's a little variable. A lot of times you'll see with the research on social stories, that there are other interventions in place as well.
Okay.
So there might be the social story, and in addition, they're role-playing, and the therapist is modeling what should happen, and they're also differentially reinforcing when the child engages in what the behavior that was talked about in the social story.
Okay.
So the research on the research line here has suggested that maybe social stories alone aren't very effective unless you're also doing these other things with your child. And this is something that shouldn't be too difficult to understand, even from a point of view of if we're thinking about in a classroom when someone is just lecturing to you, or if you just have something you're reading, but you don't ever apply it in the real world. You'll see some problems there. And so from that, maybe a common sense point of view, it makes a little more sense. But also for our children, a social story more or less outlines a set of rules. So a set of behaviors and contingencies. So, in this situation, you should do this. And if you do this, this is what will happen. This is how it will affect the other people around you. That has a lot of various skills in it that some of our kids don't have necessarily when we're at the point where we're reading them social stories and we're expecting them to use the social stories. There are some kids that use these and do very well with them, but those kids a lot of times already have the repertoire of following rules, understanding rules, also a little bit more perspective taking. So understanding how your perspective is different than someone else's, and using that to modify and adapt to your own environment. And those are very complex skills. So sometimes when we're using social stories with younger children who may not have these skills already, they may not be effective. And you want to assess, like, does your child have the ability to follow rules? Even simple if-then statements. If this happens, then you will get this. So from that point of view, you really need to look at the child as an individual and what skills the child has, and what you're actually trying to do with the story, and what point you're trying to make with it. If you're using it solely by itself, it might not work. Unless you're actually working with your child and in the situation and helping them and reinforcing their behaviors that are appropriate and related to the story.
Okay. Let's back up just a little bit and talk, for people who this is a new concept, let's talk about what social stories are considered. Because I've seen people implement these in lots of different ways. That sometimes that the story is about the child themselves. In most instances, that I can remember a time when somebody was working with my child, and there was, I wish I could think what it was that he was doing that wasn't, we wanted to change it just a little bit. And so the story was, Jem goes to the grocery store and he holds his mom's hand, and if he's going to walk away, he tells his mom that he's going to walk away. And when he does that, his mom says thank you, and she lets him go and do the thing, and Jem is happy and mom is happy too. And like every day before we were going to go and do whatever the thing was, we would read that paragraph along with implementing it and following through and whatever. I've seen other people do a social story where the child isn't featured in it, another child is featured in it, and it, but it talks about the issue that the child is having, whatever it is, and what the consequences are. Are there rules about, is it just child specific about what's going to work best with each individual child?
I think there isn't, from what I know, there isn't a lot of research specifically on how these should be written. A lot of times it is just with the child themselves, because that's what gets into the perspective taking. If your child is unable to take the perspective of another, reading them a story about a different person, even if it's the same issue, might be problematic. But if it is the story about the child themselves, it's more of an antecedent intervention where you are giving a rule. It's an extended rule. It's not just an if-then, but this is what's going to happen. We're going to go to the grocery store, and this is a behavior you should engage in. If you do that, this is what you'll maybe get, or this is how people will feel afterwards. So you're describing these contingencies that for rules, we look at rules as ways to they almost modify the behavior, because they tell you the contingency ahead of time. So it's more likely that a child who is able to follow rules will behave in that way, because they know what to expect and what they're going to get. If you're just starting this with an individual child, it may be best to do the stories about that child specifically. One thing you want to watch out for is that your child does not start modeling talking in the third person as well, because you're saying, okay, Jim is going to the store, and he is Jim, so that that might be a problem too. So look for these issues. If that's not a problem, then that might work for your child. But also, you made a very good point. You read it before you went to the store, and then you went to the store and you probably had to use some prompting and modeling, and then also differential reinforcement in that situation if he did follow through. And this is, like I said, what the research has shown so far is that it's possible that the social story alone may not be effective in and of itself.
Right.
But that's an empirical question. We won't know that until someone comes out with a study on it actually showing that. But they can be very useful tools.
Okay. Especially when combined with other things. So that you're not just solely, I think that makes common sense. You're not just relying on that. And for those of you watching at home, people do this in lots of different ways. There are services that you can write to, and they will write you a social story. If you don't want to spend money on that, you can do it yourself. I know, at least once, the one that I remember, and I can't remember what the topic was, it was just typewritten on a piece of paper, and we would read it because Jem was a little bit older. But if you watch the A Word, the mom at one point did a social story, and it looks kind of like a scrapbook, and she did it with sheet protectors just in a regular binder, but it has pictures of Jack Riley, and that Jack Riley's walking on the sidewalk, and, he's stopping when mom tells him stop, and they would go through it before they would take him outside. And I've seen people go to the trouble, to bind it so that it looks like a book, like, oh, we're going to read the story of. If that's reinforcing to your child, great. Or if it's reinforcing to you, I would say you don't have to spend that level of time if it's not reinforcing to you or your child.
Yes.
But there are lots of different ways to do this and to utilize your creativity. And if you just go, oh my gosh, it's overwhelming to me, there are people who will take your hard-earned cash and do it for you.
Yes.
There's places all over online where they'll say, I'll write your social story for you. You tell me what's going on that you want to nip in the bud, and we'll write. There are people who are doing that. It's a business.
And there are a lot of times too where when we're starting an intervention, or when a clinician is starting an intervention, a lot of times we do throw in all of these things at once, a treatment package. And from my background in research, of course, we always talk about that as a limitation for research, because we can't say exactly which one of those components, or which two maybe, or three, or if all of them are necessary to produce the behavior. And so from a research backing, of course, I'm going to be very, very open about there might be some limitations here and there. But as clinicians, if we want to just see what's effective and get the treatment, or see the child to make progress, a lot of times we will throw in everything together and just see what works and move from there. So if you're planning to use social stories, again, make sure you're using these other methods of actually training in the situation, or you can be that research practitioner and take the social story just alone and see if it changes behavior.
But if we already know that it's more that if we know it's effective when it's combined with other things, I'm going to make the choice as a parent to do what I already know to be effective, and not do it on its own.
Exactly, and so that's the researcher in me saying, okay, let's see if this works on its own. But of course, our children have these problems that we want to fix as quick as possible, and that's not the way to fix it as quick as possible.
Absolutely.
So if you're going to use these, make sure you're including these other modeling, prompting, and reinforcement procedures within the real situation.
Okay, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back to talk about intentions and perseverating on mistakes. So stick with us. Another parent wants to know, how do I find out that one thing that my kid is really good at?
Now, when they get older, they're going to kind of divide into two groups. You're going to have the kids that become verbal, and then you're going to have the kids that are nonverbal, got many more problems. Maybe they still have epilepsy or some other problem. And they kind of need different services. And the ones that get verbal, what we need to be doing with them is develop the area of strength. And that area of strength often will show up around 3rd or 4th grade, sometimes earlier. But my ability in art showed up when I was in 3rd and 4th grade, and it was always encouraged. And I was encouraged to do lots of different kinds of art. Otherwise, it would have just been endless horse heads. Mother would say to me, why don't you draw a picture of a beach or something else? It's you want to broaden it out. If the kid's fixated on trains, let's teach reading with trains, math with trains. Tap into that fixation, but develop the area of strength. Some kids it's going to be art. Other kids it's going to be mathematics. So you got a third grader who's smart in math, and he wants a 6th grade math book. Give him the 6th grade math book. Don't bore him with the baby stuff. But that kid's going to have trouble with reading, because the common thing is the uneven skills. And then you have the kids that are the history buffs, and these kids are often really good at writing skills. You tend to have uneven skills, but tap into their fixations and use those to motivate, but broaden. If he likes trains, just watching them, well, we're going to take that interest in trains to do some math with it, or maybe read about the history of the railroad. You know, tap into that motivation. One of the things I really want to talk about is we got to stretch these kids. I'm not talking about physically stretching them, mentally stretching them to do new things. I'm seeing too many kids that haven't learned how to shop, how to order food at McDonald's. So you start out, let's say it's ordering food at McDonald's or at Burger King. So you take them up there and they watch you order it. And then eventually you go in when the store's not busy, and they have to go up and order it while you're sitting at the table watching, and then you coach them. And then eventually they can go in the restaurant themselves. I can remember I was scared to go to the lumber yard alone and buy lumber. And Mother made me go. And she knew I could do it. I had bought lumber with her many times. But there's a tendency to want to have somebody else there when they do it, and they've got to learn how to do things alone. And you gradually have got to kind of push it. You've got to stretch them. And I'm seeing too many kids not learning basic skills. So a 19-year-old honor student that actually knows how to drive that had never shopped in the grocery store all by herself. That is just ridiculous. You know, you've got to stretch them. You push too hard, there can be panic. And the other thing is no surprises. No surprises. I knew all about the ranch long before I went there. I talked to Ann. But if you don't stretch these kids, they don't grow.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our very special guest in the studio is board-certified behavior analyst Angela Persicke, and she is here answering some of the questions that you guys have sent in. Our most recent question that we're going to deal with. I have a client who misreads others' intentions and continuously perseverates on the mistake. For example, someone mistakenly said John instead of Joshua. This is very interesting to me for a couple of reasons. Sometimes my son will do this, but we have actually found a phrase that we can say to him to make it stop. But the fact that they use the word perseverate in a sentence tells me, if I didn't know already, that there's somebody who is a therapist. Because I always had the joke that the jargon was going to kill me before anything else. And I remember meeting Sarah Cho, who is brilliant, and she was talking about something that had nothing to do with autism and said, oh, I'm perseverating on that. And I kind of rolled my eyes, and she said, what? And I said, no one uses perseverate in a sentence.
I totally do.
And now I use perseverate in a sentence. I've crossed over to the dark side. But I had said to Sarah Cho, no one uses the word perseverate in a sentence unless you're a board-certified behavior analyst or a person who spends a great deal of time talking about autism. But, you know, this is what happens when you get enough of the jargon under your belt. Eventually, I said something to my husband once, and the word perseverate came out of my mouth in a sentence having nothing to do with autism, and he looked at me and went, who are you? Have I met you before? Yes. So, in any case, I digress. But we see that kids do this a lot, that we teach them the rules, right? So we've done the social stories and done whatever, and we've taught them the social rules. Here are the social rules. And then a mistake happens, and they get caught in this endless loop of, well, a mistake happened. And I don't know whether it's that they have an expectation that something is going to happen, like a clown's going to pop out of a box and bump the person and go, you made a mistake, or you know what the completion of that is, but they can get stuck there. Or misunderstanding other people's intentions is a big one with my son amongst peers, that somebody does something and he still is having trouble differentiating in the moment without prompting. Once we prompt him, he gets it, but understanding, did that person mean to hurt me, or was that an accident, or what was their intention?
Yes. These are really difficult skill repertoires. We're getting into very complex skills right now, and even it's very exciting to me that people are writing in questions about this because even up 5-7 years ago, this wasn't a huge or addressed very well in the autism community. So this is exciting that people are actually attending to these and they want to know how to teach them and the difficulties that go along with that. So first, I want to talk about intentions. This again, we have to bring up perspective taking because this is exactly what we're talking about with perspective taking. Being able to understand when someone does something, if they were intending to do it, so if it was something they did on purpose, or if it was accidental. And sometimes it could be the exact same thing. So I could knock over your water onto you, and it can be a complete accident, or I can do it with intention to hurt you. And this is very difficult because the topography of the behavior looks very similar.
Right. So, and the topography is what the behavior looks like, right? Okay.
Exactly.
Another jogging.
Yes.
There we go.
So this is something that we do include in our clinical practice as a teaching component. We have to teach intentions. And we do this through discrimination training. So placing something, giving an example of an accidental event and then another example of something that's intentional. And we help the child to look for those contextual cues in the environment, subtle cues such as facial expression. Maybe when I was knocking over your water, I was smirking a little bit, or the way I said it wasn't. It was that I had a different intonation in my voice. Instead of like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry," I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." So teaching the child to understand those cues that are very subtle that a neurotypical child will amazingly start to learn very early in life just from engaging with the environment. But our kids have a very hard time being able to pick up on these subtle social cues. So this takes a lot of practice. And a lot of times it might even start with videos. So having videos of an intentional act and an accidental act. But the most important thing to do here is to make the behavior look as similar as possible in both conditions so the child can discriminate between these very subtle cues. So like I said, having the topography be very similar. So even the knocking over the water example show this and have the child point out or help the child to point out the differences between the two. And then we want to, of course, include multiple examples. We often refer to it as multiple exemplar training because we want the child to learn this generalized ability to pick up on these cues in the natural environment. And it's possible. We do it. We do it with our kids. There are many programs within the skills curriculum that address these types of things. And so it's not. Although this is often a problem for our children because it is so subtle and it's so difficult. Like we even have a hard time. I have a hard time understanding people's intentions, especially if they're really good at hiding.
Absolutely.
Or they're very good at acting
or their inflection is different. I mean, there are people that I was in a meeting last week that somebody said, "I can't tell whether you're kidding or being serious. Can you raise your left hand when you're kidding?" Because we don't know, you know? And sometimes you don't have the guts to say that. Raise your left hand when you're kidding. Are you kidding or not? Sometimes we walk away and go, I don't know whether they meant that as a joke or whether they were being serious or whether they're being mean.
Yes, we have, it's very common for us to have difficulties with this. We all do all the time. But because our children, we're teaching them the basics of this who's starting out so that they are able to think this through and problem solve. Okay, what did they say? Why did they say it? If it was accidental, it would be like this. If it wasn't, if it was intentional, maybe it would be like this. So that problem-solving repertoire is something we can teach them as well, so that in the situation they're not stuck in, oh, I'm just going to react to this as if it was one way or the other. Because the problem is if, maybe in this case, if you're always responding as if something's intentional, then you could get really upset and start perseverating on it. But if you always act as something's accidental, you could put yourself in a position for future victimization of bullying. So, that was just an accident that he spilled his drink all over me. Well, let's teach the child to understand both of these and how to respond differentially. So, for perseverating. Yes, we do use as BCBAs. We use this term a lot.
It is BCBAs, but it's a good word.
Yes, even to I talk about my own behavior in that manner as well, and it is something that we do. Everybody does all the time. We do, and especially maybe a certain thought, and like you even said. If you're not understanding someone's intentions, and later you find yourself thinking about it the rest of the day sometimes.
And you're calling people up going, did you hear when they said that to me? Was that this? That's perseveration. That's when you're not letting it go. But it's a much better, now I use it and people go, what is that word you just said? Or why didn't you just say obsessed then? But it's different than obsession.
Yes.
It is different.
That's probably some very, very technical observation.
Things that but the feeling of it is different. If I say that my child is obsessed with trains, that's different to me than saying they were perseverating on the train. It's very different to me. Perseverating on the train means he's there doing this with it, where he's obsessed with trains. Wherever we go, he likes them.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
So it's more confined to a specific event. Or stimulus when you're perseverating. It's that same thing over and over. And we, like I said, we all do this all the time, but we also learn these self-control behaviors to deal with this. So even if I hear someone tell me something and I'm perseverating on it for the rest of the day, I don't necessarily let it affect my work or my social relationships. Maybe we are calling everybody and talking about it, and some people do let it affect those things. But we learn these self-control repertoires where we inhibit talking about something or showing certain emotions towards something. And that, again, goes into something we call inhibition, which is within this category of executive functions. And I know that you've had Dr. Nadowski on the show before talk about this extensively. But this is what we consider planning, problem solving, memory, and then inhibition. Achieving goals. Inhibition is included in this too. And these are individual repertoires of behavior that need to be taught as well. So when you see a child perseverating on something, it's important to teach them some skills, some self-control skills. In looser terms, we talk about these as more coping strategies. So how can I cope with this situation? And especially when we have a child who's very rigid or inflexible, and we're trying to help them so that control their emotional responding to themselves, we might have them do things like take deep breaths. Take deep breaths. Imagine that they're in a place where they really love, and to not outwardly show that this behavior is affecting them as much as it is, but also we want to make sure that we're not telling them you cannot feel that way, because it's okay. It's okay to feel that way. It's okay to perseverate on something to a certain point, and that's when you get into, is it affecting the child's life? And in this situation where the name was different and the child isn't able to understand the intentions of others, and then they start perseverating, like, oh, he called me that. He called me. I can't believe he called me that. that's when you need to start to look at teaching these self-control or emotional regulation types of repertoires.
Yeah. And somebody wrote in and said, what is it that we do when that I mentioned that Jem does this sometimes and that we were able to stop him? There's two different kinds of things for us. One where if somebody makes a mistake and he wants to Johnny on it, let them know that they made that mistake. And so then we just put in place social rules about how often you can tell somebody that they made a mistake. So if somebody, and we have a phrase that he'll say to me always, we get into these discussions, he'll say, well, Mom, you said this, right? And then I'll go, no, I didn't say that. And he'll go, yes, you did, right? And we can do that endlessly. It's, Elmer Fudd and Bugs Bunny, it's going to go on forever. And so to stop that, so that I'm not stuck saying, no, I would not say that because whatever, something that I can say to him is, okay, if you heard that, it was a word mistake. He understands the phrase a word mistake because he makes them sometimes. And so I can say to him, it was a word mistake, and he knows if somebody makes a word mistake, you're allowed to say it to them once, and the rule is it's rude after that. That we put that and we also brought that up in a circumstance with him where he made a word mistake, and I had said to him, how would you like it if I were to bring it up over and over and over again? He said, I don't want you to do that. It was a word mistake. Let's let it go. You told me, So I can say, it was a word mistake, and then he knows if he's told me once, we're done. That's just the rule. Then with things that are intentions, when he really perseverates on something, it tends to be at school, kids when they're running out the door to leave for the end of the day or go do, there's jostling, and he is so sensory. If he gets bumped or jostled, to him it's the equivalent of being tackled and strangled. He hurts. And so he'll say, well, so-and-so punched me. Well, it was so-and-so brushing past him, right? And so we have a whole series of things that we do, but prerequisite to all of this for us was him knowing the difference between knowing and believing.
Yes.
Because we can say to him, okay, what happened? I've talked before on the show that he has a high sense of justice. I need to be able to tell my story to be heard, right? What happened? And he'll tell it from his point of view, and he understands the other person gets to tell their point of view. And then I can say to him, well, what do you think that they intended to do? And he'll say, well, their face was making this face, right? So I think they meant to hurt me. And then we will say to him, okay, take a look at this person, and have they done this before? We always have this rule about, well, if something happens a second time, then we need to be concerned. But if it happens the first time, we give people the benefit of the doubt if there's no blood, right? Because I don't want him to have the rule. The problem with giving kids rules is you give them the rules and then they take it to heart.
Exactly.
So I don't want somebody to stab him and think it's okay the first time, right? So, if there's no blood the first time, then we say, do we know they meant to do it, or do we just think that they meant to do it? And he says, well, I don't know for sure. I can't know for sure. I think that they meant to do it. And we say, okay, so for this first time, we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. We're going to assume that they didn't mean to hurt you because look at them. Do they seem like somebody who means to hurt you? And how much trouble would they be in if they actually hurt you? So they get a free pass on this first one because there's no blood. But the next time, if this happens again, then this is how we're going to deal with it. And we tell them exactly what to say and do and how we're going to react. And then he says, okay, and that's enough for him to let it go.
That's great. And that's so important to just point out that you are giving these social rules, and then there are these exceptions to the rules that you have to describe as well. But also, you're not telling him he can't feel that way.
Yes.
That's important because he will feel that way. He will feel like he was personally attacked by this person, but it's how he responds.
Yes.
So you're not telling him he can't feel that way. He shouldn't have those feelings, those emotions, those thoughts. He can have all of those.
Yes.
But he has to follow these social rules in order to navigate and just work in his environment. So, and that's really important. I really like that you pointed that out.
And the other thing that's important to me too, because my mother was this way and taught all of us kids this, my mother would say, I'm going to be on your side no matter what. And I always want my son to feel like he can come to me and he can tell me stuff and that I'm going to be on his side and that I won't take somebody else's side. So I try to get him to a point where he languages it when I say, do you know or do you believe? And he says, well, I just believe it. And then I always say to him, well, I believe that too, even if I don't. I trust you and I believe that too, but until we have some proof, and this has happened a couple of times where he has said, well, I'm afraid that somebody's going to come back and hit me again. And I say to him, okay, but here, let's think about from their perspective. Now they know we're on to them and they've gotten their one free time. And if they do it the next time, here's what's going to happen. And mom will come to school and, Katie, bar the door kind of thing, that I will be on your side. And then he doesn't have the anxiety from it.
That's great.
Because I think there is a level of the anxiety that comes with the perseveration on the thing going wrong. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? If you've ever seen a friend or someone who's making a mistake and you see them making a mistake in their life or whatever, and you go, oh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And you have anxiety about that. And should I step in? Should I say something? Should I butt in? We do this with our kids.
Yes.
We have to let them make mistakes in order to learn, but it's hard if you see somebody about to make a mistake. It brings up anxiety. So we give them these rules, but we have to help them to deal with the reality that other people aren't going to always follow the rules, and they don't have to perseverate on it. All right, I'm looking to see if we have time for one more question, because we had one more question about teaching lying, and I wanted to find the actual question. But let me mark this one complete. Because somebody wanted to know about teaching the white lies. I want to find the exact question, but I may not. Okay, what are some tips for teaching lying to kids in such a manner so that they understand situations where it is or is not appropriate to lie? For example, playing a trick versus a safety issue. It's a very hard, fine line.
It is very difficult, and again, this takes some perspective taking, of course, because when we talk about the difference between a lie that has to deal with a safety issue, or a lie that hurts others, or a white lie, which a white lie is something that doesn't hurt other people. Typically, if grandma gives you an ugly sweater, you're going to say thank you, and you love it.
Love it.
Yeah, you love it, and you're not going to say it in a sarcastic tone. You're going to really be sincere, even if you don't like it. And that's to avoid hurting people. So white lies often function as a manner to avoid hurting others in a particular way. Where and this looks a little bit like intentions when we talk about the other lies to hurt people too, or lies about for safety concerns as well. But there are differences between these lies that you can actually teach to children. For example, we have taught white lies, and we give very specific rules. If someone gives you something that you don't like, you're going to say, say these things in this way. And also, if someone changes their appearance, you can't just say, oh, you look horrible today.
When the woman says to her husband, does this make me look fat? And the husband, husbands never know what to say. And there are some poor husbands who say, yes, that makes you look fat, and they deal with the consequences from that, right? So knowing when and how to tell the white lie.
Exactly. Also, we did a study not too long ago on teaching children to pick up on when others are lying to exclude them, or when others are lying to take their possessions. And we gave a rule of sometimes people do or say things with the intention to hurt you, to purposely
get what they want.
To purposely exclude you because they want something that isn't necessarily good for you. And we use a lot of kid language. But and then we used a lot of different examples. Again, a lot of different examples where we maybe told a lie. So you can't play because you weren't born in December. Your birthday's not in December. Something like that. Or we'd say something sincere like, oh, you can't play because we have too many people already. So and then having the child think about what is true and what is false. So is it true that that in this game, in basketball, there can only be this many people? Is that true or false? Also, is it true or false that you can't play a game because you're born in this month or you have a certain color of hair? Something that these kids say all the time.
Kids are really ingeniously mean sometimes.
So we had the children think about what was said, if it was true or false, if the person meant it or not.
Right.
And this is again, it's like building up this thinking through, talking yourself through something, problem-solving type of repertoire. And then there are so many different types of lies, and you can do that with each of them. Okay, so why would I say that I went and ran a half marathon yesterday if I didn't?
Right.
Why would I say that? Okay, was I trying to look good? Was I trying to avoid an event that I should have gone to?
Right.
So what type of lie was it? What was I trying to say? And using visuals helps with this too. So what did the person say? And then the thought bubble.
Yes.
What is the person actually thinking?
Yes.
And analyzing what was going on in the environment too. And we can teach our kids to do this.
Yeah. Absolutely. But it's a lot of little things to teach too, because you have to teach sarcasm, all these major things. But I would say to everybody that all those lessons, all the things that we talked about, are pretty much contained in the cognition and executive functions curriculum of skills.
Yes.
And you can work your way through them all. So you don't have to go invent them or find them.
Nope.
So throw that out to people. We're down to the last 2 minutes of the show. Emily's starting to show you some of the different ways that you can be in contact with us here as we leave the show. And we want to thank Angela for being here with us. And our plan is to have you back again next week. So if people have questions for you, follow up for anything, you can go ahead and send those into us. But thank you so much for being here. I'm going to take this moment as we're ending the show to remind you, first of all, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube page. We really are within striking distance. For those of you who want to be able to watch our show on your tablet devices, we need to get you and your friends to subscribe to us on the YouTube page, and we'll be able to make that happen. Also, tomorrow, Dr. Adele Nadowski will be with us here to do the show live, and also Dr. Jonathan Tarbox will be here. You guys have written in a bunch of questions over the last couple of days. We're working our way through them, farming them out to where different people's specialties are. So if your question didn't get answered yesterday or today, stick with us, because a lot of them will get answered tomorrow, because we have two doctors who are board certified behavior analysts that are going to be with us tomorrow, and ever so much more tomorrow. Remember that you can watch the show live Eastern Time from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Pacific Time. It's 10 a.m. to noon. Please do the math wherever you are in your individual place in the world. We've got a lot of exciting stuff that's coming up, but right now I am working on the schedule till the end of the year. So if there are topics that you want covered from now to the end of the year, let me know. I'll program them in, and it automatically happens. All right, we'll be back tomorrow. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.